So the Battle of the Golden Palm, it returns October 4th as well. Undefeated and number 3 ranked Miami is going to travel down to Tallahassee, staying in the state of Florida. Miami, this Hurricanes team has not left the state of Florida this entire year, regardless of whether it's a home game or whether it's for a road game. Well, this Florida team that they're going up against is the Florida State Seminoles. Not undefeated anymore. They did just suffer their first loss of the year. Still ranked, however, ranked number 19 in the nation. This is going to be a 7:30 kickoff game on ABC. Honestly, a rivalry game that is loaded with history, loaded with tradition, and has been a highly competitive series between these two programs. Miami with a very slight edge over the Florida State Seminoles. Miami currently holding the all-time series lead 35-33. And what we've seen from this Miami team so far, they obviously have shown some very elite balance. You know, one of the things that I really loved was how Carson Beck, I think we're going to see the 2023 version of him instead of what we saw from last year, which compelled him to transfer out of Georgia and come down and play for the Miami Hurricanes. He has lived up to those expectations, but it's not just about Carson Beck. It's really about the rest of this team as well. The offensive line has improved significantly, and it's turned into one of the most physical offensive lines in the entire ACC. We saw that immediately, even back in the first game, really going toe-to-toe with Notre Dame from a physicality standpoint. We also saw this team carry now a physical running attack, so it's a much more balanced offense. It's not just a quarterback who does and creates everything like Cam Ward had to do last year, and he did a phenomenal job of that. That's why he was the number 1 overall pick. And then how about the defense as well? The defense was the biggest reason why Miami fell short of major expectations last year, missed the playoffs, particularly because of a big collapse in Miami. Well, that defense looks significantly better as well. So definitely can see why Miami is one of the best teams in the nation right about now, with just everything across the board except the quarterback position. You know, I would take Cam Ward over Carson Beck, but outside of quarterback position, this is certainly a better team than last year. And Mario Cristobal, he does have all of the tools to really not only make the playoff for the first time in his coaching career, but definitely the potential to really make a deep run as well into the CFP. That being said, though, this Florida State team, I know they just lost to Virginia, but that doesn't mean that they're a bad team by any means. We saw this play out with the Alabama game. They were able to be physically dominant and physically opposing against Alabama. Think about saying that out loud. That's crazy, and not very many programs have the ability to do that, but Florida State did. You know, they fell victim to a Virginia team that, you know, was ready to play, and Florida State just wasn't as focused last week. Now, you see a Florida State team, still a really good team, but then you add on to the fact that this team is going to be in wounded animal mode. This team is going to be ready to play. They're going to be a much more focused team than what we saw last week. And even last week where, you know, they played somewhat poorly, to be honest, multiple turnovers that really swung it towards the Virginia Cavaliers, a Cavaliers team that did win it fair and square. But Florida State should have won that if they just played a clean game. They didn't play that clean game. But when they have, oh boy, they can light things up, particularly in the first half. The Noles, before the last game, you know, they scored touchdowns on 10 straight possessions. They piled up 720 plus yards in the first half in their last couple of games before the Virginia game. They have a dynamic weaponry in Tommy Castellanos, who I think is an excellent quarterback, who knows how to make plays, and also Deuce Robinson, able to make big plays out on the perimeter as well. Thankfully for Florida State, it's been very clear that, you know, the transfer portal class, which was such a big issue last year, where the transfers that they brought in was a complete flop, and it led to them going 2-10 last year. Well, now they hit, it looks like it might be a lot closer to that 2023 Florida State team that is going to make a lot of noise. And they certainly have so far. So that being said, that makes this a very compelling matchup, not just because of it's a rivalry game, but we're going to see two of these programs that are rivals be really good at the same time for the first time in a minute. And I'm so excited for this game to kick off on ABC, man. Much watched television Saturday night, man. I'll tell you what. So, in short, I mean, Miami, it's clear they're going to be looking to assert its ACC dominance and prove that it's a national championship title contender, taken more seriously than maybe what we took them as in the preseason, where we thought there was more questions. It seemed like Miami did answer a lot of those questions so far. But Florida State, man, this is their home turf. And we've shown that so far this year, Florida, it's not easy to win at Doe Campbell. Particularly with Florida State's their ability to, really get that building rocking. And trust me, that is going to be an electric atmosphere. And generally try to slow down the momentum of Miami. Ever since that Notre Dame game, no one that Miami has played has actually even been able to compete with them and even threaten them. Can Florida State reverse that trend? That's something that I'm very curious about. And listen, the betting markets. So right now, the betting markets, whether you look at FanDuel or whether you even take a look at our internal models right now, it does show that this is going to be a highly competitive game. And dare I say it, Miami should be on upset alert, right? FanDuel has it as a 4.5-point favorite. I think it should be even shorter than that. I think Florida State should only be a 2.5-point underdog. Because really, at the end of the day, you never know what can happen in these rivalry games. Rivalry games that do carry like heavy emotion. And we talked about it. This Florida State team is going to be in wounded animal mode after being tripped up by Virginia last week. But at the same time, I think it's also okay to admit this. I think the U is back. I think this U team is legit. I think it's unlike last year where even when they were dominant early in the year, they had some flaws that weren't fully exposed that showed their ugly face late in the year. Mainly that defensive backfield that really forced Miami to give up a lot of points defensively. And not only that, but this is a team that's very good at the point of attack on both lines of scrimmage. This is, in my opinion, the best scrimmage team in the trenches in the entire conference. So I do expect Miami to control the line of scrimmage in this one, dictate the tempo with that scrimmage play, and all over the course of the game, be able to slow but surely wear down this crowd, not only defensively, but wear down the crowd noise that's going to be bonkers in Tallahassee until otherwise. So I think this is going to be an incredibly competitive game. I really do. But right now, I think I do trust Miami more than I do Florida State. I am going to disagree with the model a little bit in terms of I don't think Florida State necessarily covers. But I would actually be surprised if this ends up being a blowout in either direction, though. So because I trust Miami at this time more than I trust Florida State, I am going to roll with the Miami Hurricanes. I think Miami wins. This is going to be an incredibly fun game to watch. I think they win 34-28, but I think Florida State's going to prove also, even in a loss, that what happened against Virginia was very much a fluke as well, that they're a much better team than what they showed last Friday night.